I was waiting for my coffee at the small cafe near my apartment when I heard it, a baby crying. Not the normal fussy crying that babies do, but the desperate, inconsolable wailing that suggested something was seriously wrong. Looking around, I spotted the source. A man in an expensive suit, clearly uncomfortable, holding a screaming infant who couldn't have been more than 6 months old. He was trying to soothe the baby with awkward pats and bouncing, but it wasn't working. The baby just cried harder. Everyone in the cafe was staring. Some with sympathy, some with annoyance at the noise. But no one was helping. And this man, despite the expensive clothes and the confident way he carried himself, looked absolutely lost. I should have minded my own business. Should have grabbed my coffee and left. But I've always had a soft spot for crying babies, and my pediatric nursing training kicked in before my common sense could stop me. "Excuse me," I said, approaching him. "I'm a pediatric nurse. Can I help?" The man looked at me with something between relief and suspicion. He was probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair, sharp Italian features, and eyes that assessed me with unsettling intensity. Handsome in a dangerous way that set off warning bells I promptly ignored. "She won't stop crying," he said, his accent confirming the Italian heritage. "I've tried everything, bottle, diaper change, nothing works. I don't know what's wrong. May I?" I gestured to the baby. He hesitated, then carefully transferred the screaming infant to me. She was a beautiful baby, dark hair, olive skin. Clearly his daughter based on the resemblance. And she was absolutely beside herself. Face red, tears streaming. I checked the obvious things first. Diaper was clean. She didn't feel feverish, no visible injuries. But the way she was crying, the way she kept arching her back, I recognized it. "I think she has gas," I said over the wailing. "Painful but not dangerous. Here, let me try something." I adjusted how I was holding her, supporting her differently, and started rubbing her back in small circles. Then, almost without thinking, I started singing. It was a lullaby my Italian grandmother had sung to me when I was little, a traditional Neapolitan song about stars and sleep and safety. "Stella, Stellina, la notte s'avvicina." The words came back to me effortlessly, muscle memory from childhood, my grandmother's voice echoing in my mind as I sang. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The baby's crying stuttered, then stopped. She looked up at me with wide, surprised eyes, hiccuping slightly but no longer screaming. Within 30 seconds, she'd relaxed completely against my chest. I kept singing, finishing the lullaby, and by the end, the baby had burped, a surprisingly loud sound that made several people in the cafe laugh. She immediately looked more comfortable, no longer in distress. "There we go," I said softly, still swaying gently. "Just needed to get that gas out. She should be fine now." I looked up to tell the father his daughter was okay and froze. He was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read, shock, maybe grief, something intense and overwhelming. His face had gone pale, and his hands were shaking slightly. "Are you all right?" I asked, concerned. "She's fine, just gas. Nothing serious." That song. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Where did you learn that song?" "My grandmother. She was from Naples, used to sing it to me when I was little. It's a traditional lullaby, isn't it? Stella Stellina?" "Only my dead wife knew that song." He said it with such certainty, such pain, that I felt it like a physical blow. That exact version, that melody. "She sang it to our daughter every night. How do you know it?" My grandmother taught me. It's not that uncommon a lullaby in Italian families. The version you sang is uncommon. It's a regional variant from a tiny village outside Naples. My wife's village. I've never heard anyone else sing it that way." He was still staring at me like I was a ghost. "Who are you? How do you know my wife's lullaby?" I'm Clara. Clara Romano. My grandmother was from the Campania region near Naples. She must have learned it there." "I don't know your wife. I've never met her. I was just trying to help your daughter." "Clara Romano." He repeated my name slowly. Italian surname. "You speak Italian?" "Enough to sing lullabies and order food." My grandmother made sure I kept the language. But I'm second-generation American. I've never even been to Italy. The baby his daughter was now contentedly sucking on her fist, completely calm. I carefully handed her back to him and he took her with the kind of gentleness that suggested he loved her desperately despite his obvious discomfort with infant care. "Thank you," he said, "for helping her. I didn't know what to do. Her nanny quit yesterday and I'm not good at this yet. Being a single parent is hard. You're doing fine. She's healthy, well cared for. You're just still learning her cues." Single parent. He smiled, but it was bitter. "Yes, my wife died 6 months ago. Cancer. Sophia was born 2 weeks before." His voice caught. 2 weeks before her mother died. I never got to see them together except through hospital glass. My heart broke for him. "I'm so sorry. That's devastating." "It is. And now I have this beautiful daughter who looks exactly like her mother. And I have no idea how to take care of her. My family helps, but I'm supposed to be the father. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. No one knows what they're doing at first. Babies don't come with instruction manuals. You just learn as you go." I pulled a business card from my purse, my name, phone number, the pediatric clinic where I worked. "If you need advice or if something happens with Sophia and you're not sure what to do, call me. I'm happy to help." He took the card, studying it like it held secrets. "Clara Romano, RN. Pediatric Specialist. You work at St. Vincent's?" "I do. Mostly in the pediatric area, but I also do some outpatient work. If Sophia needs a regular pediatrician, I can recommend some good ones." "She has a pediatrician." "But He looked at me with that intense, assessing gaze again. "I might take you up on the offer to call. Having someone who knows about babies who doesn't judge me for being clueless, that would be helpful." "Anytime." "Really? No judgment, just help." He thanked me again, collected his coffee and Sophia's diaper bag and left. I watched him go, noticing for the first time the 2 men in suits who'd been sitting near the door, clearly security, clearly his. Not your average single father then. Someone with money, with power, with enemies that required bodyguards. I should have recognized the red flags. Should have realized that a man with that kind of security wasn't someone to get involved with. But all I saw was a grieving widower trying to figure out how to care for his infant daughter. And that man had needed help. My coffee was cold by the time I remembered to pick it up. 3 days later, he called. "Clara, this is we met at the cafe." "With Sophia? Of course. Is everything okay? Is Sophia all right?" "She's fine. But I need help. My family's nanny started today and Sophia hates her. Won't stop crying, won't let the nanny hold her. I don't know what to do." "You said I could call." "You're at home." "Yes, Clara, I know this is asking a lot, but could you come? Just for an hour, help me figure out what's wrong. I'll pay you, of course. Consultant rates, whatever you want." I should have said no. Should have recommended a different nurse, a nanny service, anyone but me. But I heard Sophia crying in the background, that same desperate wailing from the cafe, and my nursing instinct overrode my self-preservation. "Text me your address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The address he sent was in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Brooklyn brownstones that cost millions, the kind of place where old money lived quietly. His house was beautiful, traditional Italian architecture, updated with modern security. There were cameras everywhere, an intercom system at the gate, a man in a suit who checked my ID before letting me through. Definitely not your average single father. He answered the door himself, looking exhausted and desperate. Sophia was in his arms, red-faced and screaming. Behind him, I could see an older woman in a nanny uniform, looking frustrated and helpless. "Thank you for coming," he said over Sophia's crying. I didn't know who else to call. I stepped inside, and he immediately handed Sophia to me. The baby was working herself into a state, gasping between cries, hiccuping, clearly distressed. I held her the way I'd held her at the cafe, started the swaying motion, and began singing. "Stella, Stellina." The effect was just as immediate. Sophia quieted, looked at me with recognition, relaxed. By the end of the lullaby, she was calm, looking around with curious eyes instead of crying, How do you do that? The nanny asked, clearly amazed. I've been trying for an hour. She just screams harder. I think it's the song, I said. Her mother must have sung it to her while she was pregnant. Babies can hear in the womb, recognize familiar sounds. The lullaby probably reminds her of her mother. The man, I realized I still didn't know his name, looked stricken. I didn't think about that. That she might remember Maria's voice, the songs Maria sang. I've been so focused on keeping her alive that I forgot she might need comfort, connection to her mother. What's your name? I asked. I've been thinking of you as Sophia's father, but that's probably not what you want to be called. Luca Moretti. He said it like it should mean something, like I should recognize the name. I didn't, but I nodded anyway. Luca, your daughter is healthy and loved. But she's also grieving. Babies grieve, they don't understand death, but they feel absence. She knew her mother's voice, her mother's heartbeat. Now that's gone and she needs something to replace it. The lullaby helps because it's familiar. But she also needs consistency, routine, someone who can provide that maternal comfort. That's what the nanny is for. But Sophia won't, she just screams when Mrs. Henderson holds her. May I? I turned to the nanny. Could you try holding her while I sing? Let her associate the comfort of the song with you. Mrs. Henderson took Sophia carefully. The baby immediately started fussing, but I started singing before it could escalate to full crying. Sophia looked at me, then at the nanny, confused. I kept singing, encouraging Mrs. Henderson to sway gently, and slowly Sophia accepted the situation. Keep doing this, I told the nanny. Every time she gets upset, sing this song. She start to associate you with comfort instead of distress. It'll take a few days, but she adjusts. I don't speak Italian, Mrs. Henderson said. I can't sing that. I'll write down the lyrics phonetically. You don't need to understand it, just sing the sounds. The melody is what matters. I spent the next hour with them, teaching Mrs. Henderson the lullaby, showing her different holding positions that worked for Sophia, explaining infant cues and comfort techniques. By the end, Sophia was contentedly playing with her feet in the nanny's arms, no longer distressed. You're a miracle worker, Luca said. Mrs. Henderson, would you take Sophia to the nursery for her nap? I'll be up in a few minutes to check on her. After the nanny left with Sophia, Luca turned to me with that intense focus again. I owe you. Twice now you've helped when I was desperate. Let me repay you. What do I owe you for today? Nothing. I was happy to help. I don't accept free charity. Name your price. I'm a nurse. Helping people is literally my job. Consider it professional courtesy. Then let me hire you. Not as a consultant, as Sophia's nurse. Someone who can help me navigate this, who understands what she needs, who knows that lullaby. Clara, please. I'm drowning here. Luca, I have a full-time job. I can't just part-time then. A few hours a week, evening visits to check on her, on-call availability when I'm panicking because I don't know what's wrong. I'll pay whatever you want. More than the hospital pays, I guarantee it. I should have said no. Should have recognized this was getting complicated, getting personal. But looking at his desperate expression, thinking about Sophia's little face calming when she heard the lullaby, I couldn't walk away. 2 evenings a week. 3 hours each. I'll check on Sophia, help with routine, teach you and Mrs. Henderson what you need to know. That's it. I'm not a live-in nanny. I'm not on call 24/7. Just regular check-ins to make sure she's developing properly and you're handling everything okay. Deal, thank you. Clara, truly, you have no idea how much this means. Over the next 6 weeks, I fell into a routine with the Moretti family. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, I'd arrive at 6 p.m. and spend 3 hours with Sophia. I'd check her development, teach Luca and Mrs. Henderson about infant care, and always end the evening singing Stella Stellina while Sophia drifted off to sleep. Luca was surprisingly present for a man who seemed to run some kind of business empire. He'd arrange his schedule around my visits, learning alongside the nanny, asking questions that showed he genuinely cared about getting parenting right. Is it normal that she grabs her feet like that? He'd ask. Or should be rolling over by now. Or my favorite, she smiled at me today. A real smile, not gas. Does that mean she's happy? It means she recognizes you as someone who makes her feel safe, I'd tell him. That's what baby smiles mean. I know you and you're good. Congratulations. You're officially bonding. His face when I said that, pure joy mixed with relief, made my heart do something complicated. I tried not to notice how attractive he was. Tried not to see the way his expensive shirts fit his athletic build, or how his dark eyes softened when he looked at Sophia, or how his rare smiles transformed his usually serious face. This was professional. I was here for Sophia, not for her father, but it was getting harder to maintain that boundary. Can I ask you something personal? Luca said one evening. We were in Sophia's nursery after she'd fallen asleep, and he'd insisted on making me tea before I left, a routine that had developed over the weeks. Sure. That lullaby. You said your grandmother taught you. Was she close to you? Very. She lived with us from the time I was born until she died when I was 15. She was more like a second mother than a grandmother. She made sure I knew Italian, knew the culture, understood where our family came from. And the lullaby specifically? She sang it to me every night. Said her mother had sung it to her, and her grandmother before that. It's been in our family for generations, I think. Why? Because Maria, my wife, she said the same thing. That her grandmother taught her, that it had been passed down. She was from a tiny village in Campania. Where was your grandmother from? Same region. I'd have to check exactly which village. I have her immigration papers somewhere. But yes, Campania. Small village near Naples. What was her maiden name? Esposito. Clara Esposito. I'm named after her. Luca went very still. Clara Esposito. Born approximately 1940. 1938. Actually. How did you know? Because my wife's grandmother was also Clara Esposito, born 1938, from the same village. Maria used to talk about her, how she emigrated to America when Maria's mother was a child, how the family lost touch after the immigration. Clara, I think your grandmother and my wife's grandmother were the same person. Or sisters at minimum. I think we might be distantly related by marriage. The revelation hung between us. I tried to process it, that Maria, his dead wife, had been family. Distant family, but family nonetheless. That the lullaby we shared came from the same source, the same grandmother, generations back. That's why the lullaby was so specific, I said slowly. Why you'd never heard anyone else sing it that way? Because it wasn't just a regional variant, it was a family song. Passed down through your wife's grandmother and my grandmother, who were probably sisters. Which means you singing it to Sophia, it's like Maria singing it. Family song, family connection. Clara, you have no idea how much that means. That Sophia has that connection to her mother through you. I didn't know. I swear I had no idea we were related when I offered to help at the cafe. I know. That's what makes it more meaningful. You helped because you're a good person, not because of family obligation. But the family connection explains why Sophia responds to you so strongly. Why the lullaby works so well. She recognizes something familiar, something that connects her to her mother. Does it bother you? That I'm essentially using my dead wife's song to calm your daughter? No, it brings me comfort. You look like her a little, the coloring, the features. You sing her song. You have her gentleness with Sophia. It's like having a piece of Maria back in the house, caring for our daughter. That's a gift, Clara, not something to apologize for. The way he was looking at me made something flutter in my chest. This was dangerous territory. He was a recent widower, I was an employee, and apparently we were family through his dead wife. This could not get more complicated. I should go, I said, standing abruptly. It's late, and I have an early shift tomorrow. Of course. Let me walk you out. At the door, he stopped me with a gentle hand on my arm. Clara, thank you. For everything you do for Sophia, for what you've taught me. I was lost before you showed up. Now I feel like I might actually survive being her father. You were never lost. Just learning. That's what all new parents do. Maybe. But having you here has made it easier. I hope you know that. I drove home that night with my thoughts in chaos. I was developing feelings for Luca Moretti, feelings I absolutely shouldn't have. He was grieving his wife, trying to raise their infant daughter, and I was the nurse who happened to sing his dead wife's lullaby. This was a recipe for disaster. I should quit. Should refer him to another nurse. Distance myself before this got more complicated. But every time I thought about not seeing Sophia, not watching her grow and develop, I couldn't do it. That baby had gotten under my skin, and her father was quickly following. The following Tuesday, I arrived to find Luca alone with Sophia. No nanny, no staff visible. Where's Mrs. Henderson? I asked, taking off my coat. I gave her the evening off. Clara, I need to talk to you about something, and I wanted privacy. He was nervous, I realized. This confident man who normally radiated control was actually nervous. Is everything okay? Is Sophia's fine. This is about me. About us, if I'm being honest. He took a breath. I've been thinking about what you said, about my wife's grandmother and your grandmother possibly being sisters. I hired a genealogist to investigate. Got the results today. He handed me a folder. Inside were family trees, immigration records, birth certificates. And there it was, proof that our grandmothers were indeed sisters. That Maria Moretti's grandmother Clara Esposito and my grandmother Clara Esposito were siblings who'd immigrated separately. Lost touch, never knowing their American descendants were living in the same city. We're cousins, I said. Studying the documents. Distant cousins by marriage through your wife, but cousins. That's quite a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. Not ones this significant. Luca moved closer. Clara, you showing up at that cafe, knowing that lullaby, having the exact skills I needed to help Sophia, that wasn't random. That was fate. Family finding family when we needed each other most. Luca, what are you saying? I'm saying that I've developed feelings for you. Real feelings, not just gratitude or grief making me confused. I think about you constantly. Look forward to Tuesday and Thursday more than any other days. Sophia lights up when you arrive. You've become essential to us, and I don't want that to be just professional anymore. You're grieving your wife. You're not thinking clearly. I've been grieving Maria for 2 years since her diagnosis. I said goodbye to her before Sophia was even born. She made me promise I wouldn't stay alone forever, wouldn't let grief consume me. That I'd find someone who'd love Sophia, who'd be a mother to her. I think she knew you were out there. Her family, the person who'd know her song. I think she'd want this. This? What is this? You asking me to be your daughter's mother? That's not how relationships work, Luca. You don't date someone just because they'd be good with your kid. That's not why. I want you because you're kind, intelligent, gentle, but strong. Because you challenge me, make me think differently. Because when you walk into a room, I feel less alone than I felt in 2 years. Sophia's love for you is a bonus, not the reason. I'm your employee. This is completely inappropriate. Then stop being my employee. Be my... He hesitated, clearly struggling with the word. Be my friend. Someone I see because I want to, not because I'm paying you. Let me take you to dinner. Let me court you properly, the way you deserve. If after that you feel nothing, I'll accept it. But Clara, please give us a chance. I should have said no. Should have maintained professional boundaries, protected myself from inevitable heartbreak. But looking at his hopeful expression, thinking about Sophia sleeping upstairs, remembering how right it felt to be part of their little family, I couldn't refuse. One dinner. No expectations, no pressure. Just dinner between distant cousins who've become friends. That's all I'm agreeing to. That's all I'm asking. The dinner was at a small Italian restaurant that Luca had rented out entirely excessive, but he claimed it was for privacy, not to impress me. We talked for hours about everything except Sophia, his childhood in Brooklyn, my time in nursing school, his wife, Maria, and how they'd met. My grandmother and the stories she'd told about the old country. Maria would have liked you, Luca said as dessert arrived. She always said family was everything, that blood ties mattered. Finding out your family, she'd say that proves we're meant to be in each other's lives. How long has she been gone? 6 months. But she was sick for 2 years before that. The last year she was barely conscious most days. We had conversations early on about what I should do after. How I should raise Sofia. She was very specific. She wanted me to find someone good. Someone who'd love Sofia like their own. Someone with Italian blood who'd keep the culture alive. You fit every single thing she asked for. That's a lot of pressure. Living up to a dead woman's expectations. I'm not asking you to replace her. Just to be yourself. That's already more than enough. He reached across the table, took my hand. Clara, I know this is fast. I know the circumstances are unusual. But I haven't felt this way about anyone since Maria. That has to mean something. It means you're lonely and I'm convenient. I remind you of your wife. I take care of your daughter. That's not the same as actually having feelings for me. You're wrong. Yes, you remind me of Maria sometimes, the way you sing, the gentleness with Sofia, but you're not her. You're sharper, more challenging, more independent. Maria was soft where you're strong. She needed protecting where you protect others. I'm not looking for Maria's replacement. I'm looking at you, Clara Romano, and seeing someone I want to know better. Someone I could fall in love with if you'd let me. The honesty in his voice, the vulnerability, it broke through my defenses. This powerful man, admitting he was falling for me. How was I supposed to resist that? Okay, we can try this. But slowly, Luca. No rushing into anything, no assumptions about the future. Just dating. Like normal people. We're not normal people. You're a pediatric nurse related to my dead wife, and He stopped abruptly. You're a what? I'm a businessman with complicated family obligations. That's all. The hesitation made me suspicious. What kind of business? You've never actually told me what you do. Import-export primarily. Family business been around for generations. It's boring shipping manifests, customs paperwork. Nothing exciting. He was lying. Or at least not telling the whole truth. I could see it in the way he avoided details, changed the subject. But I let it go, not ready to push. Not ready to discover something. That might make me walk away. That was my first mistake. 3 months into whatever Luca and I were doing, dating. Felt like too casual a word for the intensity of it. I moved into the brownstone. Not officially, not with a discussion, but gradually. I'd stay late after visiting with Sofia, then later still talking with Luca. Eventually he'd insist it was too late to go home, that I should take the guest room. The guest room became my room, with my clothes in the closet and my books on the knitstand. Sofia was thriving. At 8 months old, she was crawling, babbling, developing the personality that made her unmistakably her father's daughter, determined, stubborn, absolutely certain that the world revolved around her. And she'd attached to me completely, crying when I left, lighting up when I arrived, reaching for me whenever she was upset. You've become her person, Mrs. Henderson observed one afternoon. I'd officially reduced my hours at the hospital to part-time so I could be with Sofia more. Not just a caregiver, but her person. The one she wants when she's scared or tired or just needs comfort. Is that okay? I mean, you're her nanny, and you're practically her mother. Don't apologize for that, dear. That baby needs a mother, and you're filling that role beautifully. Mr. Moretti's made a good choice, bringing you into their lives. A good choice. As if I were selected from candidates rather than stumbling into their orbit by chance. Or fate, as Luca insisted on calling it. That evening, Luca had a business dinner he couldn't miss. The first time I'd be alone with Sofia overnight. He'd asked if I was comfortable with it, if I wanted Mrs. Henderson to stay. I'd assured him I was fine, that I'd been handling babies professionally for years. Call me if anything happens, he said, kissing Sofia's head, then more tentatively kissing my cheek. We hadn't progressed beyond hand-holding and occasional chase kisses. Luca was being respectful of his grief, of my hesitation, of the complexity of our situation. I'll have my phone on. We'll be fine. Go to your dinner. Sophia and I will manage the evening routine perfectly. After he left, I gave Sophia her bath, dressed her in the softest pajamas, and settled into the rocking chair for her bedtime bottle. As she drank, I sang Stella Stellina, our ritual, the song that had brought us together. But that night, I added something new. Another lullaby my grandmother had taught me, one I'd almost forgotten until Sophia's sleepy contentment reminded me. It was about the moon and dreams and a mother's love that transcends death. Dormi, dormi, bel bambin, ridivino, ridivi. Sophia's eyes drifted closed, the bottle falling from her slack mouth. I set it aside, continued rocking and singing, watching her perfect little face in sleep. This baby who wasn't mine but felt like mine. This family I'd stumbled into that had become my whole world. You look like you belong there. I startled, nearly dropping Sophia. Luca was standing in the doorway, having returned far earlier than expected. His expression was soft, almost reverent. Your dinner was cancelled. Last minute. I came home and heard you singing. Didn't want to interrupt. He moved closer, kneeling beside the rocking chair. That second song. Maria sang that one too. How many of these lullabies do you know? All of them, I think. My grandmother had dozens. She'd sing different ones depending on the day, the season, what she thought I needed to hear. Sing another one, please. So I did, working through my grandmother's repertoire while Luca knelt beside us, his hand on Sophia's tiny foot, watching us with an expression that made my heart ache. After the fourth or fifth song, I carefully stood and transferred Sophia to her crib. She didn't even stir, deeply asleep in that boneless way babies have. She's perfect, Luca whispered, adjusting her blanket. Every time I look at her, I can't believe she's real. That I have this beautiful daughter. That Maria gave me this gift before she left. Maria gave you a lot of gifts. But Luca, you've given her gifts too. You're a wonderful father. Attentive, loving, learning everything you can to give her the best life. She's lucky to have you. She's lucky to have us. Both of us. He took my hand, led me out of the nursery to his study. Clara, I need to talk to you about something. Something I should have told you months ago but kept putting off because I was afraid it would scare you away. My stomach dropped. Here it was, whatever he'd been hiding about his business. Okay, tell me. My family business. It's not just import-export. That's part of it, but it's not the whole truth. Clara, my family is involved in organized crime. We run operations throughout Brooklyn and Manhattan. Some legal, some very much not legal. I'm second in command under my uncle, being groomed to eventually take over as head of the family. I should have been shocked. Should have been horrified. But looking at his nervous expression, at the way he was bracing for my reaction, I realized I'd suspected. The security, the expensive lifestyle, the way people deferred to him, the vague answers about business. I'd known on some level, I just hadn't wanted to admit it. You're in the mafia, I said flatly. I prefer to say I'm part of a family organization with diverse business interests. But yes, by most definitions, I'm in the mafia. I've been since I was 18. It's not optional when you're born into this family. And Clara, I need you to understand, I've done things. Bad things. Things I'm not proud of. I'm not a good man by conventional standards. Are you dangerous? To Sophia? To me? Never to you. Never to Sophia. I keep my family completely separate from business. The violence, the illegal operations, none of that touches our home. You're safe here, always. That's why I've been so careful about telling you, not because I'm ashamed, though I am, but because knowing makes you a part of it in ways I can't undo. And I needed to be sure. Sure you're staying, sure this is real. Because once you know, you can't unknow it. What do you want me to do with this information? Accept it. Accept me. I can't change who I am or what family I was born into. But Clara, I can promise that our life, yours, mine, Sophia's it stays separate, clean, safe. You'd never see that side of me, never be involved in operations. You'd just be my... He stopped, seeming to struggle with the word. Your what? My wife, eventually, if you'll have me. I know it's fast, I know the circumstances are complicated, but Clara, I want to marry you. Make this official. Give Sophia the mother she needs. Give me the partner I want. Will you think about it? About being my wife? Luca, you're asking me to marry into a crime family. That's not a small thing. That's my entire life changing. What if I want kids of my own someday? What if I can't handle the stress of knowing what you do? What if I love you? He interrupted. What if I've fallen completely in love with you over these past months? What if coming home to you and Sophia has become the best part of my day? What if I can't imagine my future without you in it? Does that factor into your concerns? You love me? Desperately. Completely. In ways I didn't think I could love again after Maria. You're not her replacement, you're someone entirely new who I've fallen for separately. Uniquely. Clara, I love you. And I think I hope you love me too. I did. God help me. I did love him. This complicated, dangerous man who sang to his daughter and looked at me like I was precious. Who'd built me into his life so thoroughly I couldn't imagine extracting myself. Who'd ask me to marry him knowing all the reasons I should refuse. I love you, I admitted. But Luca, I need time. Time to process this. To think about what marrying you would mean. Can you give me that? Time to decide without pressure? Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Neither is Sophia. We'll be here whenever you're ready, whether that's tomorrow or a year from now. I took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of thinking about everything, the life I'd have with Luca versus the life I'd have without him. The danger of his world versus the safety of his love. The reality that Sophia needed me versus the fear of becoming too attached to a child who wasn't biologically mine. I talked to my parents, who were surprisingly understanding. He's treating you well? My father asked. He's good to you, makes you happy, keeps you safe. When I said yes to all 3, he shrugged. Then his profession is between him and God. You focus on building your family. I talked to my supervisor at the hospital, who'd noticed my reduced hours and suspected something was developing. Are you sure this is what you want? Not just falling into it because a baby needs you? I'm sure. I love him. I love Sophia. I love the life we're building. That's enough to be sure. On day 22, I walked into Luca's study where he was working late. Yes. He looked up from his papers. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be Sophia's mother. Yes, I'll accept your complicated life and your dangerous profession and all of it. Because I love you and I love her and life's too short to walk away from that because it's not conventional. He was around the desk in seconds. Pulling me into his arms, kissing me with none of the restraint he'd shown before. This was need, want, relief months of holding back released in one moment. You're sure? He asked between kisses. Absolutely certain? Completely. Now stop asking and kiss me properly. He did. And that night, our relationship finally moved beyond chase kisses and hand-holding to something deeper. More real, more permanent. The wedding was small. Traditional Catholic ceremony at the church his family had attended for generations. Reception at the brownstone with just close family and friends. Sophia served as flower girl at 10 months old. Carried down the aisle by Mrs. Henderson, wearing a white dress that matched mine. She looks like a little angel, Luca said, watching his daughter. Both my girls do. Both his girls. I was Sophia's mother now legally, emotionally, in every way that mattered. The adoption papers had been filed the day after I'd accepted his proposal. Rushing through the system with the kind of speed that suggested money and influence had smoothed the path. Do you think Maria would approve? I asked that night, after the reception, after Sophia was asleep, as we stood in our bedroom, the master bedroom I'd finally moved into. I think Maria would say she chose well. That the family song brought you to us for a reason. That Sophia getting a mother who knows the lullabies, who keeps the culture alive, Who loves her like her own. That's exactly what she asked for. He pulled me close. And Clara? I think she'd be happy I found love again. That I'm not alone. She didn't want me to grieve forever. I hope you're right. I know I'm right. Because I feel her sometimes, her approval, her peace with this. She brought you to that cafe, Clara. She made sure you knew the songs. She gave us to each other. Maybe he was right. Maybe Maria's spirit had guided me to that cafe, had whispered the lullaby in my ear, had brought me to her family. Or maybe it was just chance, coincidence, fate. Either way, I was grateful. Grateful for Sophia, for Luca, for the family I'd found in the most unexpected way. 2 years after the wedding, our family had grown. Sophia was almost 3, talking in full sentences, half in English, half in Italian, switching between languages with the ease of a child raised bilingual. And I was 8 months pregnant with our son, due in 3 weeks. Mama, baby brother kick? Sophia asked, pressing her small hand to my belly. He's kicking right now. Can you feel it? Her eyes went wide when she felt the movement. He's strong. Like Papa. Very strong. Just like Papa. I kissed her dark hair, marveling at how completely she'd become mine. There was no distinction in my heart between biological and adopted. Sophia was my daughter. Luca walked in from his study, loosening his tie. He'd been in meetings all day, the kind of meetings I'd learned not to ask about. He kept his promise, the criminal aspects of his life never touched our home. I knew he was involved in dangerous things, but I never saw evidence, never heard details. Our home was a sanctuary, separate from that world. How are my girls? He asked, kissing me, then kneeling to kiss my belly. And how's my son? Active, very active. I think he's training for a soccer career in there. Good. A Moretti boy should be strong, energetic, ready to take on the world. Sophia climbed into his lap. Papa, sing the moon song, please. You want the moon song before dinner? That's usually a bedtime song, Principessa. But I like it now, please. He started singing, dormi, bail bambin, and Sophia joined in, her small voice blending with his deeper one. I watched them, these 2 people who'd become my entire world, and felt overwhelming gratitude. This life, this family, it was everything I'd never known I wanted. The baby arrived 3 weeks later, a healthy boy we named Marco Alessandro, after Luca's grandfather and my father. He had Luca's dark hair and my light eyes, a perfect blend of both of us. Sophia was immediately obsessed, insisting on helping with everything: feeding, diaper changes, bath time. Gentle Sophia, I reminded her as she stroked Marco's tiny hand. He's very small still. I protect him. Like Papa protects us. I'm big sister. She took the role seriously, appointing herself Marco's guardian. When he cried, she'd run to us. Mama, Marco's sad. Need the song. And I'd sing Stella Stellina to calm him. The same lullaby that had brought me to this family. He responds to it just like Sophia did, Luca observed one evening. We were in the nursery, all 4 of us, Sophia insisting on being present for Marco's bedtime. The song is magic for our children. It's not magic. It's love. They feel safe when they hear it because we sing it with love. That's the same thing. He pulled me close, careful of Marco sleeping in my arms. You've given me everything, Clara. 2 beautiful children, a real home, a life I didn't think I deserved after Maria. I don't tell you enough, thank you. For saying yes, for staying, for loving us. You don't have to thank me for loving you. That's not something you earn. It's just what happens when you're you. 3 years after Marco's birth, Sophia started kindergarten at the same private Catholic school Luca had attended. She was bright, social, bossy, everything a Moretti daughter should be, according to Luca's mother. She's her father's child, Nonna Maria said one Sunday dinner. We gathered weekly at the family estate, Luca's parents, his siblings, cousins, all of us. Smart, determined, knows what she wants. Clara, you've raised her well. We've raised her well, I corrected. Luca's as involved as I am. More involved than most fathers. Because you've shown him how. Before you, he was lost, devastated by Maria's death, clueless about babies. You transformed him into a real father. That's your gift, Clara. You heal people. Did I? I'd certainly tried with Luca. Those first years, I'd seen his grief, his guilt over being alive while Maria wasn't, his fear that he'd fail Sophia. Slowly, gently, I'd helped him work through it. Not replacing Maria, never that, but helping him accept that loving again. Building a new family. Wasn't betraying her memory. Mama! Sophia ran up to me, Marco toddling behind her. He was 2 now, talking constantly, following his big sister everywhere. Cousin Gia says I talk funny. I don't talk funny, right? You speak 2 languages, sweetheart. That's not funny, that's special. Cousin Gia only speaks 1 language. You're smarter than she is. Because you teach me. And Papa, we speak Nona's language. Exactly. Being bilingual is a gift. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about it. That night, after the children were in bed, Luca found me in our bedroom. I was folding laundry, mind elsewhere, when he wrapped his arms around me from behind. You handled Sophia's language insecurity perfectly today, making her feel proud instead of different. She is proud. Our kids know where they come from, who they are. That's important. It's important because you make it important. Clara, I need to tell you something. There's a situation with the family business. Nothing dangerous, nothing that threatens us directly, but it might require me to be gone more. Late nights, some weekends. I wanted to prepare you. My stomach tightened. How long? A few months, maybe. We're expanding operations, which means more meetings, more coordination, more time away from home. I don't want to do it. I hate being away from you and the kids. But it's necessary. Then do what you need to do. The kids and I will manage. We always do. But managing was harder than I'd anticipated. Luca was gone more than he was home, leaving before the kids woke up, returning after they were asleep. Days would pass where Sophia and Marco barely saw their father. And Sophia, perceptive child that she was, noticed. Why Papa never home? She asked one evening, tears in her eyes. He doesn't love us anymore. Of course he loves you. Sweetheart, Papa's working. He's making sure our family is safe and provided for. That's what fathers do. They work hard so their families have what they need. But I need Papa, not work. Papa. I called Luca that night after the kids were asleep. Sophia thinks you don't love her because you're never here. She cried herself to sleep, asking why you're always working. Silence. Then, I'll come home tomorrow. Postpone the meetings. Clara, I never want my children to doubt my love. Never. I'm not trying to guilt you. I know your work is important, and I knew what I was signing up for when I married you. But Luca, they're little. They need their father present, not just providing for them financially. You're right. I've been so focused on securing our future that I forgot about their present. I'll fix this. Tomorrow I'm coming home early. We'll have dinner together. I'll do bedtime routine. And I'll talk to my uncle about delegating more so I can be home consistently. He kept his word. The next evening, he was home by 5 p.m. earlier than he'd been in weeks. Sophia's face when she saw him was pure joy, launching herself into his arms with squeals of Papa. Papa, you're home. I'm home, Principessa. And I'm staying home. No more late nights, no more missing bedtime. I'm here. Promise? Promise. That night, we did bedtime together, all 4 of us crammed into Sophia's room for stories and songs. Luca read in Italian while I translated for Marco, who was still learning. Then we sang the lullabies together, our voices blending, creating the soundtrack of our children's childhood. This is what matters, Luca said afterward, as we watched our kids sleep. Not the business, not the expansion, not any of it. Just this, our family, our kids, these moments. I lost sight of that. Thank you for reminding me. You don't need reminders. You just need permission to prioritize what's important. Your family will understand if you're less available for business, and if they don't find someone else to do the work. He did. Over the following months, Luca delegated more responsibility to his younger brother, stepped back from day-to-day operations, focused on high-level strategy that allowed him to work from home more often. And our family life improved dramatically. Dinner together every night, weekends spent at the park or museum, bedtime routines where both parents were present. "You're happier," I observed one evening. We were in our bedroom, kids asleep, rare moment of quiet. "Less stressed." "I am. Turns out delegating and spending time with my family is better for my mental health than working 18-hour days." "Who knew?" He pulled me close. "Clara, I need to tell you something." "Something I've been thinking about for a while." "That sounds serious." "It is. I want to transition out of the family business. Not immediately, that's not realistic. But over the next 5 years, I want to move into legitimate operations only. Let my brother take over the criminal aspects, focus on the legal businesses. Build something clean for our kids to inherit." "What brought this on?" "You, Sophia, Marco, this life we've built. I don't want my children growing up with a father who's in constant danger, who might not come home one day because of business gone wrong. I want to be present, available, alive for all their milestones. That means getting out before I can't get out anymore. Your family will let you do that? Just walk away from operations." "It's complicated. There will be conditions, responsibilities I'll need to fulfill before I can fully transition. But yes, with my uncle's blessing, I can step back. It'll take time, careful planning." "But Clara, I want to do this. For us, for our family. So our kids never have to question whether their father will come home." "Then do it. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. I support you completely." The transition took 7 years. 7 years of careful delegation, strategic exits from illegal operations, building up legitimate businesses to replace criminal income. 7 years during which Sophia grew from kindergartner to middle schooler, Marco from toddler to elementary student. 7 years of family dinners and lullabies and slow, steady transformation. On the day Luca officially stepped down from his position in the family's criminal operations, we celebrated quietly at home. Just the 4 of us, pizza and ice cream, kids oblivious to the significance of the day. "Papa's home forever now?" Sophia asked. She was 12, old enough to know her father's business was complicated, young enough to not fully understand the implications. "Papa's home as much as any father can be. No more dangerous work, no more late nights. Just legitimate business from now on." "Good. Marco and I like you home." "Right, Marco." Marco nodded through a mouthful of pizza. "Yeah, home papa is best papa." That night, after the kids were in bed, Luca and I stood on our bedroom balcony looking out at the city. "No regrets?" I asked. "None. You, Sophia, Marco, this life, it's worth more than anything the business could offer. I'm 45 years old, Clara. I've spent almost 30 years in that world. I'm done. Ready to just be a husband and father. Ready to be clean. You've always been clean to me. The business never defined you. Your love for us did." "That's generous. But I'm still relieved to be out. To know that our kids will grow up with a father who isn't constantly looking over his shoulder, who isn't one wrong move away from prison or death. That's the gift I'm giving them, a normal father. Finally." 10 years after we married, Sophia graduated high school. Top of her class. Full scholarship to Columbia, plans to study medicine. She'd inherited my interest in healthcare and her father's work ethic, a dangerous combination that meant she'd probably be running a hospital by 30. "You've done well," Luca's mother told me at the graduation party. "Both children are thriving, happy, grounded. That's because of you, Clara. Because you love them and raised them right." "We raised them right." "Luca's been as involved as I have." "Because you showed him how." "Before you, he was a broken man playing at being a father. You healed him, made him whole. That's love, Clara, real love. The kind that transforms people." 15 years after I'd sung Stella Stellina to a crying baby in a cafe, I stood in that same cafe waiting for my coffee. It had become tradition every year on the anniversary of meeting Luca and Sofia. I'd come here, order the same coffee. Remember how drastically my life had changed in one moment? Clara Romano? A voice behind me. I turned to find a young woman, mid-20s, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. You're Clara Romano, right? You worked at St. Vincent's Pediatrics? I did, years ago. Do I know you? Not directly. But I know you. She took a breath. I'm Maria's sister. Maria Moretti. Luca's first wife. The world tilted. I'd never met Maria's family. They'd been estranged from Luca after her death, blaming him for not saving her despite the fact that cancer doesn't care about blame. And now here was Maria's sister, in the same cafe where I'd met Luca, looking at me with something between curiosity and hostility. I'm Julia, she continued. Maria's younger sister. I've been wanting to talk to you for years but couldn't find you. You stopped working at the hospital. Changed your name when you married. But today I saw you walk in here and I thought it was fate. That I was supposed to talk to you. What do you want to talk about? My sister. Her daughter. The family you stole from her. The accusation stung, even though I'd done nothing wrong. I didn't steal anything. Maria was already gone when I met Luca. Sofia needed care, I was a nurse who could help. That's how it started. And you just happened to know my sister's lullaby? Her private family song that only our grandmother taught us? That's quite a coincidence, don't you think? Our grandmothers were sisters. I didn't know that when I sang to Sofia, I was just singing what my grandmother taught me. The family connection wasn't discovered until later. How convenient. A distant cousin showing up right when Luca needed someone, singing Maria's songs, looking enough like her to pass for family. Tell me, Clara, was it calculated? Did you know who he was? Target him deliberately? No, I was at a cafe, heard a baby crying, helped because that's what I do. I'm a pediatric nurse, helping babies is literally my job. I had no idea who Luca was, no idea his wife had just died. And I certainly didn't know we were related until the genealogy research was done. But you knew the songs. You knew all of them. Every lullaby Maria sang to Sofia while she was pregnant. How? Because my grandmother taught me. The same grandmother who was sister to Maria's grandmother. The songs were passed down through both families. It's not sinister or calculated, it's just family tradition. Julia studied me with Maria's eyes. The genetic resemblance was unsettling. I've been watching your family for years. Social media, mutual friends, public appearances. You've built a beautiful life with my sister's husband and daughter. Added your own son to the family. It looks perfect from outside. It is perfect. Not because I replaced Maria, but because we built something new while honoring her memory. Sofia knows about her birth mother, knows Maria loved her. I've never tried to erase Maria from our lives. But you're raising her daughter. Singing her songs. Living in her house. How is that not replacement? Because Maria asked for it. In the letter she left for Luca, she specifically said she wanted him to find someone good for Sofia, someone who'd keep the Italian culture alive. I fit what she asked for, not by design but by chance. Or fate, as Luca says. You've read her letters? Luca showed them to me before we married. He wanted me to know what Maria had asked for, what she'd wanted for Sofia's future. I've tried to honor that, raising Sofia with the lullabies, the language, the traditions. Not because I'm trying to be Maria, but because it's important to Sofia's identity to know where she comes from. Julia's hostility seemed to waver. Maria would have liked that. She was obsessive about keeping traditions alive, about making sure Sofia would know her heritage even though she wouldn't live to teach her directly. I know. Luca's told me stories. And Julia, I think about her constantly. Wonder if I'm doing right by her daughter, if she'd approve of my parenting choices. I want to honor her memory by being the best mother I can be to Sofia. You call yourself her mother. Does Sofia? Yes, but she also knows about Maria. We visit her grave on her birthday, tell her stories about her birth mother. Yes, but she also knows about Maria. We visit her grave on her birth mother, we visit her grave on her birthday, Tell her stories about her birth mother? Make sure she knows she had two mothers, one who gave her life, one who's raising her. Both are important. Both are loved. Tears filled Julia's eyes. I haven't seen Sophia in years. The family cut off contact after Maria died, blamed Luca for not doing more to save her. We were wrong. Cancer doesn't care about money or love or anything. But by the time we realized that, too much time had passed. Sophia was 3, didn't know us. And you'd adopted her legally. We lost our connection to Maria's daughter. That's not my fault. I didn't keep Sophia from you. I didn't even know you existed. If you want to know her, to be part of her life, talk to Luca. He's not the monster your family made him out to be. He's a good father. A good husband. He's tried to be what Maria asked for. Could I meet her? Not as family, not making demands. Just I'd like to see the woman my niece has become. If you're comfortable with that. I thought about Sophia, 17 now, applying to colleges, becoming her own person. She knew she had an aunt, knew Maria's family existed. She'd asked about them occasionally, wondered why they weren't in her life. Come to dinner. This Sunday. Meet Sophia, meet Marco, our son. See for yourself what kind of life we've built. Then you can decide if you want to maintain contact, or if meeting her once is enough. You'd let me into your home? After I accused you of stealing my sister's life? I understand grief. I understand anger. You lost your sister and felt like you lost her daughter too. That's painful. But Julia Sophia deserves to know her mother's family if they want to know her. I won't keep her from that. Sunday dinner was tense. Luca was protective, hovering near Sophia like he expected Julia to snatch her away. Marco was oblivious, chattering about school. And Sophia was careful, polite, clearly unsure what to make of this aunt she'd never known. You look like your mother, Julia said, tears in her eyes. Exactly like her. It's like seeing Maria at 17 again. People say I look like both my parents. Dad's stubbornness, Mama's features, though Mama's not my biological mother. But she raised me, so I guess I picked up her expressions and mannerisms. You call Clara Mama. That must be hard for your father. Hearing you call someone else what you should have called Maria. I call Clara Mama because she is my mama. The one who raised me, who taught me everything, who's been there for every moment of my life that I remember. Maria was my birth mother, and I honor her memory. But Clara is my mother. There's a difference. Sophia's right, Luca said, his arm around my shoulders. Maria gave Sophia life. Clara gave her everything else. Both are important. We've never made Sophia choose between them. She can love them both. The dinner ended with Julia crying, Sophia hugging her tentatively, and an agreement to meet again. Over the following months, Julia became a regular presence, Sunday dinners, occasional weekday visits. A bridge to Maria's family that enriched Sophia's understanding of her heritage? Thank you, Luca said one evening after Julia had left. For letting her into our lives. For not being threatened by Maria's family wanting to know Sophia. I'm not threatened. Sophia having more people who love her, that's only good. And honestly, meeting Julia, hearing stories about Maria, it's helped me understand you better. Understand the woman you loved before me. What she gave you, why her death devastated you so completely. You're nothing like her. Maria was soft, gentle, needed protecting. You're strong, independent, fierce when you need to be. I love you differently than I loved her, not less, just different. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. You don't have to compare us or rank us. We're different people who you loved at different times of your life. Both loves are valid. Both are real. 20 years after singing to Sophia in that cafe, I stood in our backyard watching our family celebrate. Sophia had just graduated medical school, top of her class, headed to a pediatric residency. Marco was finishing high school, planning to study business so he could take over his father's legitimate operations. And Luca and I were celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary. 20 years, Luca said, pulling me close as our children and extended family filled the yard. 20 years since you walked into that cafe and changed my life. Best coincidence that ever happened to me. Not a coincidence. Fate, remember? Maria brought us together. You believe that now? You used to roll your eyes when I said it. I've had 20 years to think about it. The chances of me being at that exact cafe at that exact moment, knowing that exact lullaby, the statistical probability is astronomical. Maybe it was fate. Maybe Maria did orchestrate it somehow. I like to think she's watching, proud of the family we've built. She'd be proud of you. How you've loved her daughter. How you've honored her memory while building your own relationship with Sophia. That's not easy being the second mother, the one who raises but didn't give birth. But you've done it beautifully. Sophia made it easy. She was ready to love, ready for a mother. I just showed up at the right time. You showed up at the perfect time. When we needed you most. He kissed me gently. I love you, Clara. Thank you for singing that day. For helping that crying baby. For staying when you could have walked away. For building this life with me. I love you too. And I'd do it all again. Every moment, every challenge, every beautiful, complicated piece of it. That evening, after the party ended and the kids had left, Luca and I sat on our bedroom balcony. From here we could see most of Brooklyn, the city where we'd built our life together. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you hadn't gone to that cafe that day? Luca asked. Sometimes. But I don't dwell on it. That life, the one without you and Sophia and Marco, it's not one I want to imagine. This is my life. The one I chose. The one I built. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Me too. And Clara? In another 20 years, when we're old and gray and our kids have given us grandchildren, I'll still be thanking you for singing that day. For knowing that lullaby. For being the person Maria somehow knew we needed. In another 20 years, I'll still be singing it. To our grandchildren. To anyone who needs to hear it. Because that song, Stella Stellina, it's not just a lullaby anymore. It's our family's origin story. The magic that brought us together. Magic or fate or Maria's intervention, whatever it was, I'm grateful. You're my second chance, Clara. My proof that love can happen twice in one lifetime. That grief doesn't have to be forever. That family can be built in unexpected ways. And you're mine. My proof that helping a stranger can change your entire life. That singing a lullaby can lead to everything you never knew you wanted. That sometimes the best things come from the simplest moments of kindness. We sat together as the sun set over Brooklyn. Two people brought together by a crying baby and an Italian lullaby. Building a life neither of us had planned but both of us cherished. 20 years of love, family, and the song that started it all. Stella, Stellina, la notte s'avvicina. I sang softly, and Luca joined in, our voices blending the way they had 1,000 times before. The lullaby that connected us to Maria, to our children, to the grandmother who taught me the words without knowing how important they'd become. The song that built a family. The song that proved love can find you in the most unexpected places. The song that gave me everything. 20-5 years after that cafe meeting, I stood in Sophia's hospital room watching my daughter hold her own newborn daughter. The baby was perfect dark hair, olive skin, the Moretti features that had been passed down through generations. What are you naming her? I asked, adjusting Sophia's IV line with the professional competence that had never left me. Even after years away from active nursing. Clara Maria, Sophia said, looking at her daughter with the same awe I'd felt holding her for the first time. After both my mothers. The one who gave me life and the one who taught me to live. Is that okay? Naming her after you? Tears filled my eyes. It's more than okay. It's perfect. Luca stood beside me, his arm around my waist, watching his daughter become a mother. At 62, he was distinguished gray at the temples. Reading glasses for close work, but still the man I'd fallen in love with. Still present, still devoted, still singing lullabies to every baby in our expanding family. She looks like you did at that age, he observed. Same expression, fierce love mixed with terror. I remember that face. I was terrified. Responsible for this tiny human who needed everything from me. But I had you. We figured it out together. And now Sofia has Alessandro. They'll figure it out too. He moved to his daughter's bedside. You're going to be an amazing mother, Principessa. You've had the best teachers, your birth mother's love, Clara's guidance. Little Clara Maria is lucky to have you. Will you sing to her, Papa? The lullaby. I want her to hear it from you and Mama, the way I heard it. So Luca took his granddaughter and we sang together. Stella Stellina la nozza vicina. The song that had brought us together, now welcoming the fourth generation to hear it. Baby Clara's eyes drifted closed, peaceful, safe in her grandfather's arms. That song is magic, Alessandro Sofia's husband said. He was a pediatrician, someone who understood the science of infant development. I've read studies about lullabies, about how babies respond to rhythmic singing. But the way she just melted into calm, that's not just science. That's something more. It's love, I said. Love passed down through generations, carried in melody and words. Every baby in our family has been soothed by this song. It's our legacy. Marco arrived an hour later with his fiancée, excited to meet his new niece. At 22, he was already working in Luca's legitimate business operations, showing the same dedication his father had once shown to much darker work. She's beautiful, he said, peering at baby Clara. Does she have the Moretti temperament yet? Give her a few months. Right now she's all sweetness. The Moretti stubbornness comes later. Sofia laughed, then winced. Note to self, don't laugh after giving birth. Everything hurts. I'll get your pain medication, I said, falling into nurse mode automatically. Even retired, even years away from hospitals, the training never left. And Marco, go get your sister some decent food. Hospital food is terrible. After everyone left and Sofia was sleeping, Luca and I sat in the hospital cafeteria, the same hospital where I'd worked decades ago. Where I'd been a pediatric nurse before becoming a wife and mother. Do you miss it? Luca asked. Working here, being a nurse professionally instead of just for family? Sometimes. I love that work, helping children. But I don't regret leaving. What I've had instead, raising Sofia and Marco, being your wife, building our family, that's been more fulfilling than any career. You could go back. Now that the kids are grown, you could return to nursing if you wanted. I'm 62, Luca. Too old to go back to pediatric work. Too many years out of practice. But I've been thinking, maybe volunteering? Using my experience to help new parents, teaching baby care classes. Something that keeps me connected to nursing without the demands of full-time work. I think that's a wonderful idea. You've always been gifted at teaching people to care for their children. Why not share that gift more broadly? 6 months later, I was running weekly parenting classes at the same community center Luca's legitimate charitable foundation had built. I taught infant care, child development, how to soothe a crying baby, all the skills I'd learned professionally and refined raising 2 children. You're a natural at this, the center director told me after one class. The parents love you. They say you make them feel competent instead of criticized. That's rare. Most parenting educators make people feel like they're doing everything wrong. I just remember being a terrified new parent myself. What I needed then was reassurance, not judgment. That's what I try to give them. One evening, a young couple approached me after class. Mrs. Moretti? We wanted to thank you. Our daughter has been crying inconsolably for weeks, colic, the doctor said. But you taught us that positioning technique in the Italian lullaby? She actually slept last night. First time in 2 months we've gotten more than an hour of sleep. I'm so glad it helped. The lullaby is special. It's been in my family for generations. I've seen it work magic on dozens of babies. Could you teach us more Italian lullabies? We're not Italian ourselves, but if it helps our daughter, we'll sing in any language. So I created a special session Italian lullabies for colicky babies. I taught Stella Stellina, Dormi Dormi, and a dozen others, explaining the history, the meaning. The way these songs had been passed down through generations of Italian mothers soothing their children. The class became so popular that I started offering it monthly, then weekly. Parents would come from all over Brooklyn to learn these songs, to connect with a tradition that transcended culture and language. And every time I taught, I thought about my grandmother teaching me. About Maria singing to Sophia in the womb. About the unbroken chain of mothers singing to children. "You've started something special," Luca observed one evening. I was reviewing feedback forms, reading stories from parents about how the lullabies had transformed their baby's sleep, their family dynamics. "These songs, they're not just ours anymore. You're sharing them with the world. That's what traditions are for. Not to hoard, but to share. If these lullabies can help other families the way they've helped ours, why wouldn't I teach them?" Maria would be proud. "You've taken her family songs and made them a gift to strangers." "That's beautiful, Clara." "She gave me the songs through Sophia. I'm just passing them on." It's what grandmothers do. We pass down the wisdom, the traditions, the small magics that make families work. 30 years after the cafe meeting, Luca and I celebrated our anniversary by returning to that cafe. It was under new ownership now, modernized, but still recognizably the place where our lives had intersected. "Do you remember what you were thinking when you first heard Sophia crying?" Luca asked over coffee. "I was thinking that baby needs help and no one's helping. I didn't think about consequences or complications. Just saw a need I could fill. And you filled it. Filled every need we had: Sophia's need for a mother, my need for a partner, our family's need for someone who'd love us despite the complications. You gave us everything, Clara. You gave me everything too. A family, a purpose, a love I didn't know I was missing. We gave each other everything." "Stella, Stellina." He sang softly, and I joined in, our voices blending after 30 years of practice. The cafe staff glanced over, smiling at the old couple singing to each other in Italian. "Still works," Luca said when we finished. "Still calms me. Still makes me feel safe. Just like it did for Sophia 30 years ago." That's what love does. Creates safety, creates home. The lullaby is just the vehicle. You could sing Happy Birthday, and it would work the same way, as long as you sang it with love. But I prefer Stella Stellina. It's our song. The one that built our family. 35 years after the cafe meeting, Luca's health started declining. Nothing dramatic, just the accumulated weight of years, a heart condition, arthritis, the general wearing down that happens to bodies in their late 60s. He moved slower, tired more easily, needed medication and monitoring. "I'm becoming an old man," he complained one evening. I was helping him sort his pills, a daily routine now. "Used to be strong, capable. Now I get winded walking upstairs." "You're 67. You're allowed to get winded. That's what aging means." "I don't like it. Want to be strong for you, for our grandchildren. Want to see Clara Maria grow up, maybe even meet great-grandchildren someday. Then take care of yourself. Take your medication. Follow doctor's orders. Let me help when you need it. Fighting aging is pointless. Accepting it and working with it is smart." He did try. But at 68, he had a heart attack, moderate, survivable, but scary. I spent a week in the hospital with him, holding his hand, singing lullabies when he couldn't sleep, reminding him that he was loved and needed. "I'm not ready to go," he said one night, tears in his eyes. "Not ready to leave you, to miss watching our grandchildren grow up. Clara, I need more time." "Then fight for it. You're strong, you're stubborn, you're Moretti. Fight." He did. Physical therapy, cardiac rehabilitation, lifestyle changes. And slowly, he recovered. Not back to where he'd been, but stable, present, alive. "You saved me again," he said 6 months later. We were walking in the park, slow but steady, enjoying spring sunshine. "Sang me back to life the way you sang Sophia to calm 35 years ago." "I didn't save you. Medical science and your own stubbornness saved you. I just provided moral support. You provided love. That's what saves people, being loved enough to want to keep living." Maria taught me that. When she was dying, I asked her why she kept fighting when the cancer was clearly winning. She said she was fighting for every extra day with me and Sophia. Love made her fight. Your love makes me fight now. Then I'll keep loving you. For however many years we have left. Could be 5. Could be 25. However long we get, I'm here. We got 15 more years. 15 years of grandchildren growing up. Of Marco getting married and having his own children. Of Sophia becoming a renowned pediatrician known for her work with premature infants. 15 years of Sunday family dinners. Of singing lullabies to great-grandchildren. Of growing old together with grace and gratitude. At 83, Luca passed away peacefully in his sleep. I woke up one morning to find him gone. No pain, no struggle. Just sleep that continued into death. The doctor said his heart had finally given out. That he'd lived years longer than expected after the heart attack. The funeral was enormous. Hundreds of people whose lives he'd touched. Whose families he'd helped through his charitable foundation. Sophia gave the eulogy, talking about her father's transformation from someone living in darkness to someone building light. My father wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, lived a complicated life. But he loved fiercely. Loved my birth mother enough to honor her dying wishes by finding someone to love me. Loved Clara enough to build a new family while honoring the old. Loved his children and grandchildren with every fiber of his being. That love, that's his legacy. Not the business or the money. Just love. After everyone left, I stood at his grave beside Maria's. She'd been buried here 50 years ago. Her grave carefully maintained by Luca and then by Sophia. Now Luca was with her. Reunited with his first wife while I prepared to live without my husband. Take care of each other, I said to both graves. I'll be along eventually. But, for now, I have grandchildren to spoil and lullabies to teach. So you two wait for me. I'll find you when it's time. I lived another 12 years without Luca. 12 years of watching great-grandchildren be born. Of teaching new generations the lullabies. Of being the family matriarch who held everyone together through weddings and births and all of life's moments. At 95. 95. Who held everyone together through weddings and births and all of life's moments. And 95s and all of life's moments. At 95. Surrounded by my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, I prepared to let go. Sophia held one hand, Marco the other. Sing for me, I asked. One more time. The song. They sang all of them. 4 generations of voices blending. Stella, Stellina, la notte s'avvicina. The lullaby my grandmother had taught me. That I'd sung to a crying baby in a cafe. That had built a family and became our legacy. As their voices filled the room, I felt Luca's presence. And Maria's. Both of them waiting, welcoming me home. The song ended. And so did I, peacefully, surrounded by love. Carried by the melody that had defined my life. Epilogue, 50 years after Clara's death. Sophia's great-granddaughter walked into a cafe in Brooklyn. She heard a baby crying inconsolable, desperate. She watched a young father struggle, clearly at a loss. And without thinking, without planning, she approached. I'm a pediatric nurse. Can I help? She took the baby, felt the familiar weight of an infant in her arms. And she began to sing. Stella, Stellina, la notte s'avvicina. The baby calmed immediately. The father stared, tears in his eyes. How do you know that song? That was my wife's lullaby. She died before our daughter was born. How do you know it? My great-great-grandmother taught me. She learned it from her grandmother. It's a family song, passed down for generations. I'm Stella Moretti. And you are. The cycle continued. The song remained. Family finding family through melody and tradition, building love in unexpected places, proving that some magic is eternal. Stellina. Star, little star. The song that built a dynasty of love.